Well, the remaining presidential hopefuls, they'll go back onto the campaign trail now that 5 key states have voted yet again. Republican Donald Trump, Democrat Hillary Clinton really getting the big victories. And Senator Marco Rubio is done after a big loss here in Florida. Political analyst Dr. Bart Rossi, he's here this morning. We'll look over the results with him. And maybe we mentioned Rubio last. I'll ask you about him. You don't think he ran a very good campaign and losing here, 4th in the other states last night, that's it?
That's it, and I think he made a mistake. He should have presented himself more like a Reagan. He should have been more moderate and more sensible, the adult in the room, but he went too far to the right, too extreme, and it cost him at the end. And there's too much competition. He really should have been a moderate and a sensible person and projecting that personality, but he didn't do that.
Okay, Donald Trump, again, seems to be rolling, winning 4 of the states, waiting for Missouri. Right. But you think he's also losing some, too? He's like a 50-50 proposition.
Well, I think this is fascinating. This is a completely different election cycle, as we know. I think Donald Trump is winning and losing simultaneously at the same time, which is hard to say. But I think he's actually winning the primary season, and he will be the eventual nominee. I don't know how they deny him that. But he's also losing the general election, and we haven't even gotten to the general election, because he's discarded minorities, he's discarded immigrants, and people who believe in climate change, people who are gay, and even women. He has a problem. So how does he go into a general election and be a winner there? So he's setting it up for a monumental and colossal failure, in my view, in terms of a general election.
Trump gets a lot of the attention for the things that go on around him, and a lot of the talk over the last week was about this anger directed at him. What do you take of all of that?
Well, I think there is the anger factor, if we could call it that as a psychologist, okay? And I think that he says he's getting all the people who are angry and they're going to be voting for him. He's partially right about that, and he's marketed himself very well. However, there's also anger that's going towards Bernie, you know, wealth only to the wealthy, okay? But there's also anger in America about how Obama's been treated. Think about it. I mean, birth certificate, not a real person, not a real president. Well, there are a lot of people out there who are angry about the way he's been treated and will vote. They're going to be out there. And it's interesting to note that Obama's approval rating, job approval rating, just went over 50. He's actually close to Reagan. Maybe in comparison, he's looking pretty good to some of these candidates. So, you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting way, the way it shakes out. Let's talk about Democrats now, because with Hillary Clinton, the wins that she's got, the delegates that she's got, there's really almost no stopping her.
There's no stopping her, but I think that Bernie Sanders has actually won. I mean, I think that Hillary should maybe buy a couple of his old suits, because she's going to have to be wearing some of his, political fervor. You know, she's going to have to present Bernie Sanders herself, because he's made a point. I mean, wealth only, for the wealthy, and education only for the super wealthy. And what about tax breaks? Well, they only go to the wealthy. Well, she's going to have to do something about Bernie Sanders. Maybe she ought to consider him for, a VP. In addition to buying some of his old suits, she's going to have to maybe consider him for something.
And you liked the way she looked and sounded after winning last night.
You know, I thought she was very dynamic. I thought she covered all the bases in terms of what she stood for. Interesting that she's standing up for herself and what she believes in, and yet we have some folks on the other side, except for Kasich, who I think has done a very good job. Some folks on the other side, we're not even sure where they stand on actually doing something for health care or something positive for immigration. You know, she stands up for herself, and she's a real person.
Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you.
We'll be right back.